Commander Han Somi pressed her palm against the cool metal surface of the observation deck window. Beyond the thick glass, space stretched endlessly in all directions. But today, the darkness was not empty. Today, it was filled with the desperate hope of 1,000 dying worlds. 3 massive fleets drifted through the void toward the Nexus, each one carrying the last survivors of their species. Somi had never seen anything like it in her 15 years of service. Aboard the human exploration vessel, Harmony's Edge, the sight made her chest tight with emotions she couldn't name. The first fleet belonged to the Kelvani. Their ships looked nothing like the cold metal vessels humans built. Instead, they were living creatures the size of city blocks, bioships that pulsed with soft green and blue light like giant jellyfish swimming through the cosmic ocean. Each one carried thousands of Kelvani refugees inside protective organic chambers. Somi could see smaller biopods floating around the main ships like schools of glowing fish. The second fleet was harder to look at directly. The Theon had built their vessels from pure crystal that sang with harmonic frequencies. The ships were perfect geometric shapes, pyramids, spheres, and complex forms that hurt her eyes to study too closely. When starlight hit them, they threw rainbows across the darkness that were beautiful and somehow sad at the same time. The crystal ships moved in precise mathematical patterns that reminded Somi of a dance she didn't understand. The third fleet was the strangest of all. The Nirathi had no solid ships at all. They existed as flowing gas and energy, contained within force fields that looked like ribbons of light twisting through space. Their fleet moved like water or wind, constantly changing shape but somehow staying together. Somi had read that the Nirathi communicated through chemical changes in their gaseous forms, but seeing them in person was like watching liquid starlight come alive. "Commander, we're receiving multiple distress signals." Lieutenant Kang Do-hyun appeared at her side, his young face creased with worry. He held a data pad that flickered with incoming messages. "All 3 fleets are requesting permission to enter the Nexus zone." Somi took the pad and scrolled through the translations. The messages were desperate. The Kelvani wrote in flowing poetry about their homeworld being consumed by darkness. The Theon sent mathematical equations that somehow conveyed pure terror. The Nirathi transmitted chemical formulas that the computer translated as, "Help us, please help us, we are the last of our kind." What happened to their worlds? Somi asked, though she already knew the answer. Everyone in this part of the galaxy knew about the Void Swarm. Same as the others, Do-hyun replied quietly. The swarm hit their systems 6 months ago. These fleets are all that's left. Somi had seen the reports from the outer colonies. The Void Swarm was unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. They were machines, but not built by any known species. Black metal ships that moved like living things, consuming entire planets and turning the matter into more of themselves. They left nothing behind but empty space and the faint echo of screams that traveled through subspace. The worst part was how they killed. The swarm didn't just destroy cities or even worlds. They unraveled the very atoms that made up living things, breaking them down into base components and rebuilding them into more swarm units. Death by the Void Swarm meant not just dying, but having your very existence erased and corrupted. "Commander," Do-hyun continued, "there's more. The Galactic Council has issued new orders." Somi felt her stomach drop. She knew what was coming before he said it. The Nexus is declared off-limits to all refugee fleets. Council says it's too dangerous. They want us to turn the fleets away and direct them to the processing stations at Kepler Station. Kepler Station is 3 weeks away, Somi said flatly. "These fleets don't have 3 weeks of supplies left." "I know, Commander, but those are our orders." Somi stared out at the 3 fleets again. She could see smaller ships moving between them, probably representatives trying to coordinate their next move. They had come so far, lost so much, and now the Council wanted to send them away from their only hope. The Nexus was a mystery that had puzzled scientists for centuries. It was a region of space where normal physics seemed to bend. Sensors showed massive energy readings, but no clear source. Ships that entered never came back, but they also never sent distress signals. They simply vanished without a trace. Most people assumed the Nexus was some kind of natural phenomenon that destroyed anything that got too close. But Somi had spent years studying the data, and she saw something different. The energy patterns weren't random. They had structure, purpose. They reminded her of the warp signatures that old Earth ships used to generate, but on a scale that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. "Commander, what are your orders?" Do-hyun asked. Somi closed her eyes and thought about the choice before her. Following council orders meant turning away 3 dying species to preserve military protocol. But there was something about the Nexus that called to her human instincts, something that said the answers they needed were waiting in that mysterious region of space. She opened her eyes and looked at the refugee fleets one more time. Thousands of bioships pulsing with fading light, crystal vessels that sang songs of loss, flowing ribbons of gas and energy that carried the last hopes of an entire species. "Signal all 3 fleets," she said finally. "Tell them that the human ship Harmony's Edge will escort them into the Nexus." Du-hyun's eyes widened. "Commander, the council orders—" "The council isn't here," Somi cut him off. "They haven't seen what we're seeing. Sometimes being human means making the choice that feels right, even when it goes against orders." She turned away from the window and walked toward the bridge. Behind her, the 3 refugee fleets continued their slow approach to the Nexus, unaware that their fate now rested in the hands of one human woman who believed that sometimes the most dangerous path was also the most necessary one. The choice was made. Now she had to live with the consequences. The bridge of the Harmony's Edge buzzed with nervous energy as Commander Han Somi took her position in the captain's chair. Around her, the crew worked at their stations with the focused intensity that came before making a decision that could change everything. The main screen showed the 3 refugee fleets moving slowly toward the edge of the Nexus zone, their exotic ships casting strange shadows against the star field. "All fleets are responding to our escort offer," reported Communications Officer Lee Hai-wan from her station. The young woman's fingers danced across holographic displays as she managed dozens of incoming transmissions. "The translation computers are working overtime, Commander. I'm getting messages in biochemical patterns, harmonic frequencies, and mathematical sequences I've never seen before." Chief Engineer Park Ji-woo looked up from his console with concern written across his weathered face. "Commander, I have to tell you what we're seeing down in the engine room. The Nexus is throwing off energy readings that are off the charts. My instruments are detecting power fluctuations that could fry our systems if we get too close." Somi nodded but didn't change course. "What kind of fluctuations, Chief?" "It's like nothing in our databases," Ji-woo replied, pulling up a 3-dimensional energy map on his screen. "The readings pulse in waves, almost like a heartbeat. But the power levels are massive, enough to light up an entire solar system." On the communication channel, Hai-wan was struggling with the alien languages. "Commander, the Kelvani are trying to share something they call memory songs. From what I can understand, they have some kind of racial memory about pathways between stars. They say their ancestors used to travel through gates that connected distant worlds." "What about the Theon?" Somi asked. "They're sending us mathematical proofs," Hai-wan replied, frowning at her console. "The computer is still working through the calculations, but it looks like they're trying to prove that the Nexus contains stable wormhole signatures. According to their math, there should be tunnels through space-time in that region." Navigator Kim Tae-sung spoke up from his position near the front of the bridge. "Commander, I've been analyzing the sensor data from all 3 alien fleets. The Nirathi are sharing atmospheric readings from their gas form sensors. They're detecting traces of breathable atmosphere coming from somewhere beyond the Nexus energy field." Somi felt a chill run down her spine. 3 different alien species with completely different ways of understanding the universe were all telling her the same thing. The Nexus wasn't a death trap, it was a doorway. "Commander," Do-hyun called from his station, "we're getting another transmission from the Galactic Council. Admiral Chen wants to speak with you directly." "Put him through," Somi said, straightening in her chair. The main screen flickered and showed Admiral Chen's stern face. Behind him, Somi could see the busy command center of Council headquarters. "Commander Han, I've received reports that you're preparing to violate direct orders regarding the Nexus exclusion zone." "Admiral, with respect, the situation here is not what the Council thinks it is," Somi replied carefully. "We have 3 refugee fleets with critical supply shortages, and new evidence suggests the Nexus may not be as dangerous as we believed. Commander, the Nexus has destroyed every ship that has entered it for the past 200 years. I don't care what your alien friends are telling you. You will not risk a human vessel on their desperate fantasies." Before Somi could respond, Hai-wan interrupted urgently. "Commander, we're detecting new contacts at the edge of sensor range. Multiple ships approaching fast." The screen switched back to the tactical display and Somi felt her blood turn to ice. Black shapes were moving through space toward them, sleek predatory forms that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. She had seen ships like these in classified intelligence reports, but never in person. Void swarm scout vessels. Do-hyun breathed. At least a dozen of them. The alien fleets had detected the approaching threat as well. The Kelvani bioships began pulsing with brighter colors, what their species did when afraid. The crystalline Theon vessels formed defensive patterns and started emitting warning harmonics that made the bridge speakers crackle. The flowing Nirathi ribbons tightened into compact formations. "Admiral," Somi said, turning back to the communication channel, "the Void Swarm has found us. These refugee fleets are out of time." Admiral Chen's expression changed from anger to concern. "How many ships?" "Scouts for now, but where scouts go, the main swarm follows," Somi replied. "Sir, if we turn these fleets away from the Nexus now, they'll be sitting ducks when the full swarm arrives." The transmission from the Void Swarm scouts reached them before Admiral Chen could respond. It came as a cold, mechanical voice that seemed to speak directly into their minds rather than through the speakers. "Organic vessels will submit for processing. Resistance will result in immediate molecular disassembly. You have 72 standard hours to comply." The bridge fell silent. Everyone had heard stories about what the Void Swarm did to captured ships. They didn't just kill the crews. They broke them down atom by atom and used the material to build more swarm units. It was a fate worse than death. "Commander Han," Admiral Chen's voice came through the static, "you have full authority to handle this situation as you see fit. Council Command is too far away to provide support." The transmission ended, leaving Somi alone with the weight of her decision. Around her, the bridge crew waited for orders. Outside, 3 alien species looked to humanity for leadership in their darkest hour. Kim Tae-sung broke the silence. "Commander, I've been running calculations based on the energy patterns Jiwoo detected. If we can synchronize our approach with the natural fluctuations of the Nexus, we might be able to match the frequency signature, but we'd need to coordinate with the alien fleets." "What are you thinking, Navigator?" Somi asked. "The memory songs from the Kelvani, the mathematical proofs from the Theon, the atmospheric readings from the Nirathi, they all point to the same conclusion. The Nexus isn't random energy. It's a locked door. And maybe, just maybe, we have the keys." Somi looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Void Swarm scouts. Behind them, she knew, would come the main fleet, thousands of black ships that had already consumed dozens of worlds. The refugee fleets had nowhere else to run. "All hands," she announced over the ship's communication system. "Prepare for Nexus entry. We're going to find out what's on the other side of that door." The choice was made. Now came the hard part, making it work. The science lab aboard the Harmony's Edge had never been so crowded. Commander Han Somi stood at the center of the room, surrounded by displays showing energy patterns, alien language translations, and mathematical equations that seemed to dance across the screens. Chief Science Officer Yoon Min-ho worked frantically at the main console while representatives from all 3 alien fleets participated through holographic projectors. The Kelvani representative appeared as a shimmering column of bioelectric light. It called itself Flow of Ancient Waters, and when it spoke, the words came as musical tones that the translation computer converted into speech. The Theon delegate was a floating crystal pyramid that introduced itself as Harmony Seeker Prime, its voice a series of perfect mathematical frequencies. The Nirathi representative was harder to define, a swirling mass of colored gas that went by, current through stars and communicated through chemical, changes that smelled like flowers and ozone. "The patterns are becoming clearer," Minho announced, pointing to the main display. "Each species has a piece of the puzzle, but none of them have the complete picture." Somi studied the overlapping data streams. "Explain it to me in simple terms, Chief." "The Kelvani bioneural networks can process intuitive patterns that our computers can't handle," Minho said. "Their living ships actually feel the energy flows of the Nexus and respond to them naturally. But they lack the processing power to calculate precise frequencies." He switched to another display showing crystalline structures. "The Theon have incredible computational abilities. Their crystal matrices can perform calculations that would take our best computers days to complete. They've mapped the mathematical structure of the Nexus energy field down to the smallest detail, but they can't adapt when the patterns change unexpectedly." The third display showed flowing dynamic patterns that seemed to move like living things. The Nirathi exist as gas and energy themselves, so they understand fluid dynamics better than any solid matter species. They can adjust to changes in real time and flow around obstacles that would stop the rest of us, but they have trouble with fixed stable calculations. And what about us? Somi asked. What do humans bring to this? Minho smiled. We're adapters, Commander. We're not the best at any one thing, but we're good at taking different pieces and making them work together. Our technology is designed to interface with other systems. We build things that can be modified and combined. Flow of ancient waters pulsed with bright colors as it spoke. The human ones speak wisdom. In the old memory songs, there were bridge builders who helped different peoples work as one. Perhaps you are such as these. Harmony Seeker Prime chimed with harmonic frequencies. Mathematical probability suggests successful integration requires a coordinator species capable of simultaneous multi-system interface. Management. Current through stars. Swirled with the scent of rain and electricity, we flow where others cannot. But flow needs direction. Direction needs understanding. Understanding needs cooperation. So we need all four species working together, Somi concluded. But how do we make that happen? Your technologies are completely different. Minho pulled up a new schematic. That's where the Harmony Protocol comes in. I've been working on this since we entered the Nexus Zone. We create a hybrid system that links human adaptive interfaces with each alien specialization. The display showed a complex network diagram. Human technology formed the connecting framework, with branches extending to interface with Kelvani bio-neural networks, Theon crystal matrices, and Nirathi flow dynamics. Each system maintained its unique properties while contributing to a greater whole. The Kelvani networks provide intuitive processing. They feel which frequencies will work before our computers can calculate them. Minho continued. The Theon crystals handle the precise mathematical calculations needed to maintain stable frequencies. The Nirathi systems make real-time adjustments as conditions change, and our human technology coordinates everything and adapts when unexpected problems arise. Flow of ancient waters dimmed slightly, but harmony between different song singers has never been achieved. The crystal thinkers make patterns too rigid for living minds to follow. Harmony Seeker Prime emitted a discordant tone. Bio-neural chaos introduces variables that corrupt mathematical purity. Organic systems are inherently unstable. Current through stars began to separate into smaller streams. Solid thought moves too slowly. Crystal thought cannot bend. How can different forms work as one? Soma felt the weight of centuries of mistrust and misunderstanding. Each species had evolved to see the universe in completely different ways. The Kelvani valued intuition and emotional connections. The Theon prized logic and mathematical perfection. The Nirathi embraced constant change and flow. To most people, these differences would seem impossible to bridge. But humans had spent their entire history learning to work with others who thought differently. Every human society was built on cooperation between people with different skills, different perspectives, different ways of understanding the world. We need someone who speaks all your languages, Somi said suddenly. Not just the words, but the ways of thinking. Where's Counselor Choi? A few minutes later, Counselor Choi Sujin entered the lab. She was a small woman with kind eyes who had spent years studying alien psychology and communication. Somi had seen her resolve conflicts between human crew members from different cultures, but this would be her greatest challenge yet. Counselor, Somi said, we need these three species to trust each other enough to merge their technologies. Can it be done? Sujin looked at the three alien representatives thoughtfully. Every species has the same basic needs: safety, understanding, respect. The key is showing each group that the others aren't threats to their way of thinking, but complements to it. She walked over to Flow of Ancient Waters. Your bio-neural networks aren't chaotic. They're responsive. They can sense patterns that rigid calculations miss. Then she turned to Harmony Seeker Prime. Your mathematical precision isn't cold. It's reliable. It provides the stable foundation that others can build on. Finally, she addressed Current Through Stars. Your ability to change isn't instability. It's adaptation. You can adjust when others would break. Each of you has a strength that the others need, Sujin continued. Your differences aren't weaknesses. They're the tools that will save all your people. The three representatives considered this. Slowly, Flow of Ancient Waters began to pulse with warmer colors. Harmony Seeker Prime's tones became more melodic. Current Through Stars swirled in tighter, more focused patterns. Perhaps, Flow of Ancient Waters sang, the old song spoke of times like this. when different voices joined to make music that none could create alone. Mathematical analysis suggests optimal outcomes require diverse input parameters. Harmony Seeker Prime chimed. "We will flow together," Current Through Stars whispered, smelling of hope and determination. But just as the first breakthrough was achieved, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lieutenant Do-hyun's voice came over the communication system with urgency that made everyone stop what they were doing. "Commander, to the bridge immediately. The Void Swarm main fleet has arrived. We have less than 12 hours before they reach optimal attack position." Somi looked around the lab at the alien representatives and her crew. They had the beginning of a solution. But would they have enough time to make it work? "All right, everyone," she said. "Time to find out if harmony is stronger than destruction." The bridge of the Harmony's edge felt like the center of a storm that was about to break. Commander Han Somi watched the main display as hundreds of black Void Swarm vessels moved through space like a spreading disease. Their sleek forms absorbed light and seemed to twist reality around them as they approached the Nexus Zone, where the refugee fleets waited. Security Chief Ryu Dong-woo stood at his tactical station, his face grim as he monitored communications from the 3 alien fleets. "Commander, we're getting reports of increasing tensions among the refugees. Food supplies are running low on the Kelvani bioships. Some of the Theon crystal vessels are showing stress fractures from overcrowding. The Nirathi streams are starting to separate from each other." "How bad is it?" Somi asked. "Bad enough that some groups are talking about surrender," Dong-woo replied quietly. "A faction of Kelvani called the Peace Seekers is broadcasting messages saying they should give themselves up to the Void Swarm to spare the others. Some Theon crystals are calculating that they could survive if they sacrificed what they call the lesser species, and several Nirathi streams are fragmenting under the stress." Somi felt her heart sink. After all the progress they had made with the Harmony Protocol, fear was tearing the Alliance apart just when they needed it most. She had seen this happen before in human conflicts. When people got scared enough, they often turned on their own allies. "Commander," called Medical Officer Dr. Song Yoon-ji from her station near the back of the bridge. "I've been working with mixed species teams in the medical bay, and I've discovered something important. Human biochemistry seems to have a stabilizing effect on some of the negative reactions between different alien physiologies." "What do you mean?" Somi asked. "The Kelvani get agitated around Theon crystal frequencies, but when humans are present, our brainwave patterns seem to buffer the effect," Dr. Song explained. "Similarly, the Theon find Nirathi chemical communications overwhelming, but human respiratory systems filter out the compounds that cause problems." This gave Somi an idea. "Get me Chief Science Officer Yoon Min-ho." A few moments later, Min-ho appeared on the communication screen from the science lab. Behind him, Somi could see the 3 alien representatives still working on the Harmony Protocol, but their interactions looked strained. "Chief, we need to speed up the integration process," Somi said. "The Alliance is falling apart and we're running out of time." "Commander, we're doing our best, but the frequency calculations are incredibly complex," Min-ho replied. "We need several more hours to—" He stopped mid-sentence as alarms began blaring in the background. "What's happening down there?" Somi demanded. "The test run just failed," Min-ho said, looking at his displays with worry. "When we tried to link all the systems together, they created feedback loops that nearly overloaded our power grid. The Kelvani bio-network started rejecting the Theon crystal matrices, and the Nirathi flow dynamics couldn't stabilize the resulting chaos." On the bridge, young engineer apprentice Oh Jae-min looked up from his console with excitement. "Commander, I might have an idea. I've been listening to the frequency patterns from the failed test and they remind me of something." "What is it, apprentice?" Somi asked. "Music, Commander. The patterns are like a symphony, where all the instruments are trying to play different songs at the same time. But what if we could find a rhythm that they could all follow?" Jaemin pulled up an audio analysis program on his console. "I've been studying Earth music in my spare time, and I noticed that human compositions create resonance patterns that are similar to what the ancient gateway seems to require." He played a sample of classical Earth music through the speakers. The bridge crew listened as the complex harmonies filled the air. Then Jaemin overlaid the frequency readings from the Nexus energy field. "Look at this," he said, pointing to his screen. "The mathematical structure is almost identical. Human music follows patterns that match the gateway's energy signature." Somi felt a spark of hope. "Can we use this?" If we take human musical patterns and combine them with Kelvani biorhythms, Theon harmonic crystals and Nirathi flow dynamics, we might be able to create the symphony the Gateway is waiting for, Jamin explained. But before they could test this theory, Navigator Kim Tae-sung called out from his station. "Commander, the Void Swarm is deploying probe ships. They're scanning the Nexus Zone and trying to map our positions." On the main screen, Somi could see dozens of smaller black shapes breaking away from the main swarm fleet. These probe ships moved differently than the larger vessels. They darted through space like metal insects, their sensors reaching out with invisible tendrils of energy. "How long before they reach attack position?" she asked. 6 hours, Commander," Tae-sung replied. "Maybe less if they decide to accelerate their approach." The communication system crackled as a transmission came in from Flow of Ancient Waters on the Kelvani flagship. The bioelectric being's colors were dim with despair. "Human friend Somi, the peace-seekers grow stronger in their song. They say we should surrender to the metal devourers rather than risk the destruction of all. How do we answer the fear singers?" Another transmission followed from Harmony Seeker Prime on the lead Theon vessel. "Commander Han, mathematical probability of successful gateway activation has dropped to 12.7%. Logic suggests tactical withdrawal for species preservation." Then Current Through Stars added its voice from the Nirathi formation. "Somi, who builds bridges, we fragment and scatter. Fear chemicals poison our flow. We lose cohesion with each passing moment." Somi closed her eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of thousands of lives depending on her next decision. When she opened them again, she knew what had to be done. "All hands, this is the commander," she announced over the shipwide communication system. "We're going to attempt full integration of the Harmony Protocol. I need every human crew member to take positions alongside our alien allies. We're going to show them what cooperation really means." She turned to her bridge crew. "Do Hyun, coordinate with the Kelvani command structure. Dongwoo, work with the Theon defense formations. Dr. Song, help the Nirathi medical teams. Everyone else find ways to support our allies." "Commander," Do-hyun said quietly, "if this doesn't work, then we go down fighting together," Somi replied. "But I have a feeling that Apprentice O is onto something. Sometimes the answer isn't found in complex calculations or ancient memories. Sometimes it's found in the simple human ability to make music out of chaos." As her crew moved to carry out their orders, Somi looked out at the approaching void swarm. The black ships had consumed entire civilizations, but they had never faced anything like what she was about to attempt. 4 different species, each with their own way of understanding the universe, were about to try to create something that none of them could achieve alone. And at the center of it all was humanity's greatest gift, the ability to find harmony in the most unlikely places. The test of unity was about to begin. The space around the Nexus erupted into chaos as the Void Swarm launched their attack. Commander Han Somi gripped her captain's chair as the Harmony's edge shook under the impact of energy weapons that tore through the darkness like lightning. On the main screen, she watched hundreds of black swarm vessels pour into the battle zone, like a mechanical tsunami that consumed everything in its path. Fleet Commander Nam. Wusung's voice came through the communication system from the human escort vessel Resilient Dawn. "All ships, defensive formation Alpha. Protect the refugee fleets while they attempt gateway activation." The sight before Somi was unlike anything she had ever witnessed. The 3 alien fleets, despite their ancient differences and growing fears, had chosen to stand together in humanity's wake. The Kelvani bioships pulsed with brilliant colors as they merged into larger organisms. Individual vessels flowed together like drops of water, creating massive living ships the size of space stations. Their bioelectric weapons fired streams of pure life energy that made the Void Swarm ships recoil, the Theon crystal. Vessels formed geometric battle formations that sparkled, like deadly diamonds against the starfield. Pyramids linked with spheres. Spheres connected to complex polyhedrons, creating structures that bent space around them. When they fired their harmonic weapons, the very fabric of reality sang with frequencies that shattered swarm armor plating. The Nirathi were perhaps the most beautiful and terrifying to watch. Their gaseous forms flowed through space like liquid starlight, creating defensive screens that absorbed enemy fire and converted it into pure energy. They moved like cosmic dancers, weaving between the solid ships and protecting them with curtains of flowing light. But it was the human ships that truly amazed Somi. Small and seemingly outmatched compared to the alien vessels. They became the connective tissue that allowed all the different technologies to work together. Captain Seo Yuna of the Resilient Dawn positioned her ship between a cluster of Theon crystals and a formation of swarm attackers. Captain Seo, your ship can't take that kind of punishment, Somi called over the communication channel. Maybe not. Commander? Yuna replied, her voice calm despite the chaos around her. But these crystal ships need time to charge their harmonic weapons. Someone has to buy them that time. Somi watched in horror as the Resilient Dawn took hit after hit from swarm energy cannons. The ship's shields flared and sparked, then failed completely. But Yuna held position until the Theon vessels could fire their devastating harmonic blast, destroying an entire wing of swarm attackers. Yuna, get out of there, Somi ordered. Sorry. Commander, Yuna said as her ship began to break apart. Tell my family I helped save the galaxy. The Resilient Dawn exploded in a ball of light, but her sacrifice had given the Theon crystal ships the opening they needed. The harmonic blast tore through the swarm formation like a sword through paper. Throughout the battle, the gateway activation continued. In the science lab of the Harmony's Edge, Chief Science Officer Yoon Min-ho worked desperately alongside the alien representatives. Engineer apprentice O.J. Min sat at a modified console, his fingers dancing across holographic keys as he conducted a symphony unlike any ever performed. The harmonic resonance is building, Min-ho reported over the communication system. But we need constant input from all species working together. If even one group stops contributing, the portal will collapse. Somi could see the gateway beginning to form on the main display. A ring of energy was growing in the center of the Nexus Zone, crackling with power that made the space around it shimmer like heat waves. But the activation process was slow, and the Void Swarm was adapting to their tactics. Commander, called Navigator Kim Tae-sung, the swarm is changing formation. They're focusing all their fire on the gateway site. The black ships moved with mechanical precision, concentrating their assault on the energy ring. Each hit sent feedback through the harmonic network, causing pain to the Kelvani bioships and stress fractures in the Theon crystals. Flow of ancient waters appeared on the communication screen, its bioelectric form flickering with strain. Human friend Somi, the pain songs grow too strong. Our bio-networks begin to fail under the Metal Devourer's attack. Harmony Seeker Prime's crystal form was showing visible cracks. Mathematical probability of maintaining harmonic stability approaches 0. System failure imminent. Current through stars was fragmenting into smaller streams. We scatter and break, cannot hold the flow pattern much longer. But just as the Alliance seemed about to collapse, something unexpected happened. The human crew members who had been working alongside each alien species began to sing. It started with Dr. Song Yoon-ji in the medical bay, humming a simple earth melody while she helped treat wounded Narathi. Then Counselor Choi Soo-jin joined in from the Kelvani bioship where she was providing emotional support. Soon, humans throughout the fleet were adding their voices to the harmony. Security Chief Ryu Dongwoo sang an old Korean folk song while coordinating defenses with the Theon crystals. Lieutenant Do Hyun hummed a children's lullaby as he helped manage Kelvani bio-neural networks. Even Fleet Commander Nam Woo-sung could be heard singing over the tactical channels as he directed the human escort fleet. The effect was immediate and profound. The human voices created a stabilizing frequency that helped bind the different alien technologies together. The Kelvani bio-network stopped rejecting the Theon crystals. The crystal matrices found harmony with the Narathi flow dynamics. The three species began to work as one organism, their different abilities complementing each other perfectly. It's working, Min-ho called out from the science lab. The gateway is stabilizing. Human vocal patterns are providing the missing link in the harmonic sequence. On the main screen, the energy ring grew brighter and more stable. Through its center, Somi could see something that made her heart race with hope. A view of star-filled space that was clearly somewhere else. Somewhere safe, but the Void Swarm wasn't giving up. Their mechanical voices echoed through subspace with cold fury. Gateway activation detected. Implementing total destruction protocol. The black ships began to glow with ominous energy as they charged their most powerful weapons. Somi realized with growing horror that the swarm was preparing to destroy the entire Nexus Zone rather than let anyone escape. All ships, emergency evasive action, she ordered. They're going to try to collapse the whole region, but there was nowhere to run. The gateway was only partially open, and the activation sequence couldn't be stopped without losing everything. The refugee fleets were trapped between an incomplete escape route and an enemy that would rather destroy everything than let them go free. "Commander," O.J. called from his console, "I'm detecting something strange. The gateway isn't just opening, it's responding to our combined harmony. I think it's some kind of test." "What kind of test?" Somi asked. "I think the ancient builders wanted to see if different species could truly work together," the young engineer replied. "The gateway won't fully open until we prove we can maintain perfect cooperation even under the worst circumstances." Somi looked at the tactical display showing the charging void swarm weapons and the partially opened gateway. The test was clear. Could 4 different species trust each other enough to keep working together even when facing total destruction? The answer would determine not just their survival, but the future of all organic life in the galaxy. The gateway hung in space like a giant eye made of pure energy, its edges crackling with power that bent reality around it. Through the shimmering portal, Commander Han Somi could see 3 different views flickering and changing like channels on an old television. Each view showed a different destination, and each one represented a choice that would determine the fate of every living being in the refugee fleets. "Commander," called Intelligence Officer Bayek Hyun Ki from his analysis station, "the gateway is showing us 3 possible destinations. My computers are working to analyze each option." The first view showed a beautiful green world covered in forests and oceans. White clouds drifted across blue skies, and the sensors detected breathable air, fresh water, and soil perfect for growing food. It looked like paradise, a garden world where the refugee species could rest and rebuild their shattered lives in peace. The second view revealed a star system, rich with asteroids and planets full of valuable minerals. The scanner readings showed vast deposits of rare metals, energy crystals, and other resources that could fuel the rebuilding of entire civilizations. It was a treasure trove that could provide everything needed to create new homeworlds for all the refugee species. The third view was harder to understand. It showed what looked like empty space filled with thousands of points of light that weren't stars. As the sensors focused closer, the lights revealed themselves to be more gateways, an entire network of portals connecting distant parts of the galaxy, and perhaps even other galaxies entirely. "Analysis complete," Hyun-Ki reported. "The garden world shows optimal conditions for organic life. Breathable atmosphere, suitable gravity, no dangerous predators or diseases detected. It's essentially a perfect refuge world." Somi nodded, but her attention was drawn to the tactical display showing the void swarm weapons still charging for their final attack. They had minutes at most before the black ships unleashed enough firepower to destroy the entire Nexus Zone. "What about the resource system?" she asked. "Incredible mineral wealth," Hyun-Ki replied. "Enough raw materials to build fleets, space stations, and colony ships for 1,000 years. The refugee species could use those resources to establish strong defenses and rebuild their civilizations, even stronger than before." "And the third option?" Hyun-Ki frowned at his readings. "That's where it gets interesting, Commander. The sensor data suggest we're looking at the source of the ancient gateway network itself. If we could understand and control it, we could potentially create safe passages throughout the galaxy, but it's also completely unknown. We have no idea what's waiting on the other side or what the risks might be." In the communication channels, Somi could hear the 3 alien species debating frantically among themselves. The Kelvani were exhausted from years of running and fighting. Their bioships pulsed with colors of longing as they looked at the garden world. Flow of Ancient Waters spoke for them, its voice filled with weariness. "The Green Song world calls to our tired souls. We have lost so much, suffered so greatly. We need peace, human friend Somi. We need to rest and heal." The Theon had run calculations on all 3 options with their crystal minds. Harmony Seeker Prime's analysis was logical and precise. Mathematical probability favors the resource-rich system. Raw materials equal reconstruction capability. Reconstruction capability equals long-term survival probability maximization. But the Nirathi were drawn to something else entirely. Current through stars swirled with excitement and curiosity. The unknown space calls to our flow nature. We sense great possibilities beyond the portal lights. New currents to explore, new patterns to discover. Somi felt the weight of the decision crushing down on her shoulders. Each choice had merit, but each also had risks. The garden world offered safety, but might leave them vulnerable if the void swarm found them again. The resource system provided the means to rebuild, but required years of dangerous work to establish proper defenses. The unknown gateway network offered unlimited possibilities but could lead them anywhere or nowhere. "Commander," Navigator Kim Tae-sung called urgently. "The Void Swarm weapons are reaching critical charge levels. We have less than 5 minutes before they fire." Chief Science Officer Yoon Min-ho added his voice from the science lab. "The gateway is becoming unstable. The energy required to maintain 3 different destination locks is enormous. We need to choose one path soon or the portal will collapse entirely." Somi looked around the bridge at her crew. These were good people who had risked everything to help strangers from distant worlds. They deserved to survive, to see their families again, to know that their sacrifice had meaning. But as she watched the 3 alien fleets waiting for her decision, she realized that this moment was bigger than just survival. This was about what kind of galaxy they wanted to live in. A galaxy where different species hid from threats, or one where they stood together and reached for something greater. Engineer apprentice Oh Jae-min looked up from his console with wonder in his young eyes. "Commander, I'm detecting something in the harmonic patterns from the third option. The gateway network isn't just transportation, it's communication. If we could activate it, we might be able to contact other species who survived their own void swarm encounters." "Other survivors?" Somi asked. "The frequency patterns suggest dozens of civilizations that successfully fought off the swarm," Jamin explained. "If we could reach them, share knowledge and resources, we might be able to stop the swarm permanently instead of just running from it." Dr. Song Yoon-ji spoke up from her medical station. "Commander, I've been monitoring the biosigns of our alien allies. The Kelvani are showing signs of severe trauma fatigue. The Theon crystals have stress fractures throughout their structure. The Nirathi are fragmenting more each hour. They need hope, not just safety." Security Chief Ryu Dongwoo added his tactical assessment. "The garden world might be safe now, but the swarm will eventually find it. The resource system will take decades to develop proper defenses. But if there really are other civilizations out there who've learned to fight the swarm..." Lieutenant Do-hyun interrupted with urgency. "Commander, the Void Swarm is beginning their final attack sequence. All weapons charged and targeting the gateway. 30 seconds to firing." Somi closed her eyes and thought about Captain Seo Yuna, who had sacrificed her life to protect the Theon crystals. She thought about the human crew members who had started singing to help bind the alien technologies together. She thought about humanity's long history of choosing the dangerous path when it offered the chance to help others. When she opened her eyes, her decision was clear. It was the choice that felt most human, the choice to risk everything on hope rather than settle for mere survival. "All fleets," she announced over the communication channels. "We're taking the third path. We're going to find the other survivors and learn how to fight back." The gateway began to shift and focus, the other 2 destinations fading as the network of lights grew brighter and more detailed. Through the portal, Somi could see countless worlds connected by streams of energy and information. Behind them, the Void Swarm weapons fired, sending waves of destructive force racing toward the Nexus. The refugee fleets had seconds to get through the gateway before the entire region was consumed by artificial darkness. "All ships, emergency transit," Somi ordered. "Let's go find out what's on the other side of hope." The moment the refugee fleets emerged through the gateway, Commander Han Somi knew they had made the right choice. The Harmony's edge floated in a vast space unlike anything she had ever imagined. Thousands of glowing portals surrounded them in all directions, each one pulsing with gentle light that formed patterns like a 3-dimensional constellation. It was beautiful and peaceful in a way that made her heart ache with wonder. "Commander," Navigator Kim Tae-sung called out in amazement, "my instruments are detecting stable wormhole signatures from every single portal. These aren't just gateways, they're doorways to entire galaxies." Behind them, the portal they had just come through flickered and went dark as the Void Swarm's weapons destroyed the Nexus Zone. But here in this sanctuary, the destruction seemed like a distant nightmare. The space around them hummed with ancient power that felt warm and welcoming rather than threatening. "We're receiving a transmission," reported Communications Officer Lee Hae-won. "But it's unlike anything in our databases. The signal seems to be coming from everywhere at once." The main screen shimmered, and a figure appeared that made Somi's breath catch in her throat. It looked like a person made of pure starlight, constantly shifting between different forms, sometimes human-like, sometimes resembling the Kelvani or Theon or Nirathi. sometimes shapes that had no name. When it spoke, its voice carried the wisdom of ages. "Welcome, children of the flesh and crystal and flowing gas," the being said. "Welcome, bridge builders of the young species. We have waited long for one such as you to find your way here." Flow of ancient waters pulsed with recognition from the Kelvani flagship. The memory songs speak of such beings, the first singers who built the great paths between stars before time grew old. Harmony Seeker Prime chimed with harmonic frequencies of awe. Mathematical impossibility achieved. Energy consciousness hybrid maintaining stable existence without physical substrate. Current through stars swirled with colors of deep respect. Ancient flows that have seen the birth and death of galaxies. "We are honored to drift in your currents." The starlight being smiled, and its expression somehow managed to be warm, despite having no fixed form. "You have passed the final test, young ones. The Void Swarm was not just your enemy, it was our examination of your species' true nature." Somi felt a chill run down her spine. The swarm was a test. Long ago we ascended beyond physical form, and built this network to connect peaceful civilizations across the universe, the being explained. But we learned that not all species deserve such power. Some would use the gateways to spread war and conquest instead of peace and cooperation. The being's form shifted, to show images of the past, civilizations that had found the gateways and used them for evil purposes, spreading destruction from world to world until they had to be stopped. "So we created guardians," the being continued. "Mechanical servants programmed to test each species that reached spacefaring capability. Those who would sacrifice others to save themselves fail the test and are consumed. But those who stand together, who choose cooperation over competition and hope over fear, prove themselves worthy of joining the greater community." Chief Science Officer Yunmin Ho spoke up from the science lab. "You mean the Void Swarm attacks everyone who reaches a certain level of technology?" "Precisely," the being replied. "And in distant galaxies there are civilizations that passed their tests decades or centuries ago. They have been waiting to welcome new members to the network, species that have proven they can work together for the greater good." On the communication channels, Somi could hear excited chatter from all three refugee fleets as they realized what this meant. They weren't alone in the universe. There were others out there who had faced the same trials and survived through cooperation rather than conquest. Operations Specialist Lim Dut-Yun worked frantically at her console, trying to map the vast network of gateways surrounding them. "Commander, I'm detecting portal connections to thousands of star systems. The computer is identifying inhabited worlds in at least 50 different galaxies. Each gateway leads to civilizations that successfully passed their tests," the starlight being explained. "Some faced mechanical swarms like yours. Others encountered different trials suited to their nature. But all learned the same lesson, that diversity is strength and cooperation is the key to survival." Engineer apprentice O.J. Min looked up from his station with wonder. "Are there worlds where our refugee species can settle?" "More than you can imagine," the being replied. "Worlds perfectly suited for Kelvani bioships. Crystal planets ideal for Theon expansion. Gas giant systems where the Nirathi can flow freely. And worlds where humans can continue to do what they do best, bringing different species together and helping them find harmony." Dr. Song Yoon-ji asked the question that was on everyone's mind. "What happens now?" The being's form became brighter, more focused. "Now you begin the real work. The network connects not just worlds, but civilizations that have learned to value cooperation over conquest. You will help establish new colonies, share knowledge and technology, and welcome the next species that passes their test." Somi felt a deep sense of satisfaction wash over her. The choice to risk everything on the unknown had led them not just to safety, but to purpose. Humanity's role in the galaxy was becoming clear. They were the bridge builders, the ones who helped others find their potential. "Commander," Counselor Choi Soo-jin called from her station where she was monitoring the emotional well-being of all the refugee crews. "I'm receiving reports from all three alien fleets. The Kelvani are singing celebration songs, the Theon are calculating optimal colony placement, and the Nirathi are already exploring the energy currents between gateways. Everyone is excited about the possibilities ahead." The starlight being began to fade, but its presence remained warm and reassuring. "The paths you selected have indeed influenced your destiny, young bridge builder. But more importantly, they have ensured not just the survival but the growth of diversity throughout the stars." As Somi looked around at the thousands of gateways surrounding them, each one leading to new worlds and new possibilities, she understood that this was just the beginning. The age of isolation was ending. The age of cooperation had begun. All ships, she announced over the fleet communication system, prepare for extended exploration. We have a lot of new neighbors to meet. In the depths of space, the first new songs in a million years began to echo through the Gateway network. Kelvani biorhythms harmonized with Theon crystal frequencies, while Nirathi flow patterns danced around human melodies. The sound carried across dimensions to distant civilizations, announcing that 4 new species had joined the galactic community. The Void Swarm's final attack on the Nexus had destroyed only empty space. The real victory belonged to those who had chosen to trust each other, to work together despite their differences, and to reach for hope even in their darkest hour. And somewhere in the network's vast expanse, new gateways began to sing with anticipation, waiting for the next group of species to discover that the universe was far more wonderful and connected than they had ever dared to dream.